Are you in your 20s and asking yourself the question, how can I be happier? Welcome to the second episode of the Life Coaching Show. In our chat, the man asked me, why do I do life coaching with people in their 20s? It's a good question. I mean, from a business model standpoint, you guys don't have much money. Also, when I was in my 20s, I thought I knew everything already, and I didn't need some old guy like me talking nonsense. To top that all off, people in their 20s aren't generally looking for life coaching. That typically happens when people get to their 30s or their 40s and realize life is a bit harder than they thought that it was going to be, and that having seasoned problem solvers in their corner can be of benefit. And even more challenging than all of that, about half of the people in their 20s smell like Lynx Africa deodorant, which just smells too rich for us old people's noses. So, target audience with little money, little interest in my service, and smelling like they are made from air fresheners. Let's hope I like a challenge. Let's get back to the chat and we will see why we aim this content at people in their 20s.
How comes you want people in their 20s? Is it just because they need it the most, or?
So, if you can help people in their 20s, that is when you can have the most impact. And so I'm 43. I was going to say 44. I'm almost 44, end of May. And like, there's so many people my age are just like, oh, I wish I knew all that when I was in my 20s.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
So I kind of want to take the information people wish they knew in their 20s and give it to people when they're in their 20s. But also, just in terms of effectiveness, if you can help someone in their 20s, then you can give them a great life for 80 years. That's more time than if you help someone in their 40s and give them a great life for 60 years.
Yeah.
Not that lots of people don't have great lives without a life coach, but that's a theory anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Better to give them the knowledge early, I guess.
Yeah, the earlier the better. I think it can't really be much before 20s because teenagers just aren't in that zone, are they?
They're not looking to, they just want to have fun at that sort of stage. They're not looking to set themselves up. And
I think also there's like I guess for me, when I got to maybe 27, 28, I kind of realized, life's not quite as easy as I thought it was. Maybe I do need some help. Whereas when I was 23, I was like, I'm going to be like a multi-billionaire by the age of 30.
I think everyone does that.
Like, I don't need people telling me what to do.
Yeah, I know. I remember when I was 19, I made friends with loads of older people. And I remember saying, by the time I'm your age, I'll have done this, have that. And I'm that age now. And then,
it's like, it's harder than you think.
Yeah, exactly.
Many of the keys to success, health, and happiness are actually quite simple. However, people either aren't aware of them or they are hidden in a sea of noise with no way to decide what is good advice and what is not. What I want to do is give people the knowledge to create an amazing life. And I want to give people that knowledge as soon as it might be effective. One of the reasons that we're working towards doing actual life coaching in a few episodes' time is so we can see how it all pans out for the coachees. This way, you can see for yourself what works and what doesn't work for different types of people. Let's turn our attention to happiness for a moment. And so aside from housing and money, so the people who are successful, have good jobs, are they generally happy or not happy, or where are they at on the kind of emotional scale?
Yeah, I would say probably a mix. I think it depends on the person. I definitely know people who have really good, well-paid jobs, corporate jobs, careers, and they're very happy doing that. And like their lives are quite stable in the sense that they know what they want to do and they want to just progress throughout the career that they're already in. And then I also have friends who are in extremely well-paying corporate careers who are unhappy or thinking about like how they can do something else with their time, or like wanting to transition out into something else. So I think it just, and also people in like the more like, or the less well-paid jobs that are really happy as well doing those jobs. So I think it kind of just depends on the individual. I'm not sure if there's like, if you could categorize everyone in one way.
I guess that's the same for pretty much any age anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some people are happy, some people are not happy.
Pretty much, yeah. But I think also like in your 20s, you have this feeling of like you can change. People have this possibility of like, I have a lot of time in my career to do lots of different things. Whereas I think if I asked like my parents and their like generation of friends, like when you're in your 60s and you're in your career, maybe there's not a feeling of like, oh, I can now just change industries multiple times, or like I can do lots of different things. So then you kind of feel like this is what I am doing now, this is what I'm an expert in. Whereas in your 20s, you're kind of not really an expert in anything. So you're kind of just like, you could change from one thing to another and like build new skills. And like, I think there's a feeling of more like flexibility.
When I was in my 20s, I thought I was an expert at lots of things. But then, later discovered perhaps I wasn't. This next clip with the guy, we were actually chatting about books which changed our life, and that led to talking about happiness. Well, technically, I was chatting about books which changed my life because it really is all about me. The other book that made a massive difference to me was Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth.
I've not heard of that one.
Okay, so it's like a spiritual guidance book, so it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but for me it just really strongly resonated.
Yeah.
And because I think, so basically before that book, my happiness was like, sometimes I was happy, sometimes I was sad. And after that book, I was like, I just was much more in the happy zone all the time. And like, even when stuff is bad now, I still using, I guess, his techniques and stuff, even when stuff's bad, I'm still in a happy kind of place. I can be happy sad now, which before I...
Yeah, exactly, because you're going to be days where you're happy, days when you're sad as well, but you just got to...
So, if something really bad has happened, I'm like, life's still beautiful.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm just sad now. The conversation got onto the correlation between money and happiness. And we concluded, as these kind of chats always do, that happiness costs £73. Or in American dollars, that's $926.
And the main goal is just to be able to have enough money where you don't have to worry about what you're going to buy. You don't have to worry about paying the bills, and you can just afford to live a nice lifestyle. And that's changed as well. Whereas a few years ago, it's like, I want this, lots of money, so I can do all this. Whereas now, obviously I still want to make lots of money, but I'd still live a happy life if I was, as long as I can have enough money to look after myself, my family, buy the things I want. And that's not like crazy cars, just, to live a normal life, but be able to buy the things I want and not have to worry.
Oh.
So what about you? Were you the same? Or were you like, I want this amount of money, or I need to make this amount of money?
I was beyond delusional. I really thought I'd be the richest man in the world.
Yeah,
like,
to
I
be fair,
genuinely believe that. And, I have fallen so short of that objective, which...
But I think it's better to have those goals and fall, it's better to aim for a 10 out of 10 and get an 8 than people that have such small goals and they're only aiming for a 5 and then they get a 5 and they're like, oh, I did it. But it's better to have an 8 and fall short.
I don't know how long ago, but maybe 5 years ago, I had to, accept that was not on the cards for me, because I was coming up to 40 and just was not on that path. So I was just born super motivated and wanting money. But when I read that Eckhart Tolle book, I still wanted the money, but my happiness has since then been totally independent of money. So if I have a good month and make money, or have a bad month and lose money, it's not affecting my happiness. It's
And that's the stage you want to get to, probably most people in their 20s, where it's like, say you didn't make the money you wanted, but you've still got enough money where you're not panicking, like, oh, I can't afford things. So obviously you're in a good place to, show people in their 20s of what it can be like. But I'm the same. I'm really money motivated, but I know that even if I made £1 million tomorrow, I still wouldn't be like, it wouldn't be the be all and end all, the happiness of my life. I'd still want to do something with the money, or try and make something out of my life. So I feel like I will try and get this, like I am super confident in myself. Like, I do believe I'll be successful, and I do believe I'll achieve a lot of my goals. But in terms of money, I feel like I'll probably get a certain amount of money and then nothing will change, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that happens to a lot of people I hear.
So some people make a lot of money and then become depressed because they're expecting that to be the solution and to give them happiness. And that day the money comes in, you're like, that has made zero impact on my happiness. And then you're like, well, that was my big chance for happiness. And it, so they're kind of almost desperate. And so yeah, it's great if you can separate it out in your mind and be like,
as long as you know that there's other things to money, which then I think it's okay if you're money driven. But if it's just all you care about is money and you think that's everything to do with life, then I don't think that's the best mindset to have.
Yeah. The algorithm of happiness. What is the actual algorithm for happiness? One of my main motivations for doing this channel is that I have happiness and I want to share that with people. Being happy is my second biggest achievement. My actual biggest achievement is that I memorized all the lyrics to a rap song by the 90's band called Cypress Hill. The song was called Insane in the Membrane, and I can still remember most of the lyrics to this day. Pretty impressive. But achieving and maintaining happiness is also quite good. Happiness is a large and complicated algorithm and can be different for different people. We're going to talk about the major components, just so you're aware of what they are. When we get into the life coaching part, we will try and get individuals to implement the algorithm. The first thing to understand is biochemistry. We are a big chemical reaction, and there is a chemical component to happiness. Chemicals such as serotonin and dopamine are major players, but ultimately, we're a bunch of chemicals with ever-changing chemical reactions, both short-term and long-term reactions. And all the reactions are ultimately interlinked, therefore affecting happiness. It's kind of the opposite to what we think. It feels like happiness is related to the external. For example, if we have a bunch of unexpected chores to do, we might feel sad. And if we win an unexpected holiday, we might feel happy. It feels like our happiness level is determined by the external. However, if you think about it, that external model has some flaws. Firstly, people who have everything are rarely happy. And secondly, that sometimes really bad things can happen and it doesn't affect our happiness. And sometimes a very minor annoyance that we might not have even noticed can put us in an unhappy mood for a whole day. Clearly there's more going on than our happiness just being correlated to the external factors. When the chemicals in our system are in balance, happiness is kind of easy. However, keeping those chemicals in balance can be hard work. Side note, success, health and happiness in general is hard work. The principles we teach here are not shortcuts and they're not easy. You get out what you put in. There are many people offering you tremendous results for very little effort. However, I am offering you incremental improvements for a lot of effort. Not necessarily the world's best advertisement. There are two main categories that affect the chemicals, and those are the physical and the mental. For the physical, the main subcategories are nutrition, sleep, relaxation, exercise, chemical minimalization, and sunlight. For the mental, the main categories are purpose, progress, gratitude, relationships, and emotional intelligence. We also have the problem of duration deception. For example, if we drink 3 pints of beer with our mates, we might feel pretty happy, and we will easily see the link between the 3 pints and the happiness. So we might do that every night. Then, months or years later, we might have the feeling of generally feeling down. However, we will unlikely be able to directly relate that back to drinking too much alcohol over a long period of time. This makes alcohol seem like a cause of happiness and not a cause of feeling down. However, over the long run, for the vast majority of us, alcohol creates more sadness than it creates happiness. This is true for many things, and is one of the reasons why we find happiness so hard to achieve and maintain. I should say that I drink alcohol from time to time. I'm not picking on alcohol, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just going to run over a few things so you know what are steps in the right direction of long-term sustainable happiness and what are not. Nutrition. Unprocessed foods, fruits, vegetables and meats and water are a step in the right direction. Processed foods, Too much starchy carbohydrates and refined sugars are a step away from happiness. Sleep. The right amount of sleep helps success, health and happiness. A good night's sleep is a win. Staying up all night playing a computer game might feel great fun at the time, but it comes at a long-term cost. Relaxation. Finding good ways to relax and unwind is a win. That's why, once a week, I go mud wrestling with bears. Chemical minimalization. This is about avoiding things such as recreational drugs, nicotine, alcohol, basically all the fun stuff. Avoiding medication where possible, chemicals on your skin, breathing in toxic air, and other powerful chemicals. Sunlight. Never go in the sun or you will explode. Actually, that's just for vampires. Everyone else needs regular, moderate amounts of sunshine on their skin. I messed up the vampire teeth clip. I thought we could stick these vampire teeth in with chewing gum, but that turns out not to be true at all. Purpose. Finding your purpose helps keep you in balance. We'll talk a lot about purpose as time goes on. Progress. Humans have evolved to progress. Being static or moving backwards over a long period of time is pretty disheartening. Gratitude. What are you grateful for? I'm grateful for my own amazing sense of modesty. Relationships. Healthy relationships help create long-term sustainable happiness, and negative relationships drain the very life out of us. Emotional intelligence. This is about understanding how the next decision you make will affect your emotional state long-term. I can be pretty harsh to unhappy people who claim to have a high level of emotional intelligence. If you are mostly unhappy, your claim of understanding emotions is delusional, in my opinion. Slowly improving all of these things increases your long-term happiness, and finding fun and effective ways of improving these things will be a consistent thread in our life coaching show. For me, there are two, arguably free books which have changed my life. One of them is a book I mentioned earlier, called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. This book taught me a high level of emotional intelligence, but this book is probably not for most people. I talk more about this book and the other books on my website. In the next episode, we will be talking about health. The healthier you are, the more successful you can be. And being healthy can't hurt your happiness either.